Welcome to the RC Racing TV build of the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1 radio control car. In steps 1 and 2, we have assembled the spur gear onto the spur gear hub, and we've also glued on a few pieces onto the bonnet, namely the front grille, the top radiator piece, these bonnet hooks, and a couple pieces on the air filter. So that is step 1. Oh, and we've also put on these cool decals on the hubcaps, which will go centrally onto these right here, onto the wheels. In steps 2 and 3, we will be installing one of the wheels, one of the tires onto the wheels. We'll be assembling the servo saver assembly, putting together the air filter, and let's see, it looks like putting together one of the shocks in step 4. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's clear off these pieces here, and we'll get to build steps 3 and 4 of the Kyosho Hummer H1. Okay, for this step, step 3, we have got this cool little retail package. As you can see, there's a real rubber tire included. The pieces for the servo saver, a couple of cam pieces, and those will be resting together. And here's your spring-loaded servo saver. And you've got the air filter. Already partially assembled with the foam on, and so let's get cracking. Just going to use a pair of scissors to open this up, just make it a little bit easier than in steps 1 and 2. Make sure that we're not cutting too close to any of the parts, although there's not much danger of damaging them. So we're just getting some of these pieces out. Cool looking tire, nice tread, got a nice tall sidewall. And then got the air filter, there's the outer piece. The elbow that's going to fit onto the nice, very solid rubber elbow. That's going to fit onto the carburetor. And foam air filter. Protect the engine. Always a good idea. And then we've got the little screws. So again, we're going to need our number 2 Phillips crosshead screwdriver to work these screws in. Pair of pliers is also recommended for this step, and also instant glue or contact adhesive, CA glue, cyanoacrylate. We've got a couple different types here. It's very simple. So we just need to make sure what we're talking about, make it clear what we're talking about on the tire and wheel pieces. This here is your sidewall. Now, if you're familiar with cars, of course, don't need to tell you this. This is also the sidewall. This is the outer sidewall. It's just the way these RC cars are designed nowadays, that the outside has a nice tall sidewall, and the inside has a smaller sidewall, basically. And here's your tread, the bit that runs on the actual ground, the bit that looks the coolest to me. And here we've got the wheel rim. This is the inside, obviously, of the wheel rim. There's the very solid support. This is high impact nylon, very rugged. And then the shoulder is just what you can see here. That piece right there, obviously, just like a shoulder on a person, really. So very simple terminology, and we'll be getting to that when we actually put the wheels and tires together in a bit. First thing we need to do is make sure that we clean the edges of where we're going to be gluing. So it's very simple. You can do this in a sink or a tub or a wash basin or something like that. This is just some soapy water, just for demonstration purposes. And we're just going to wet this cloth and clean what we call the bead of the tire, because obviously the tires are made from lots of oil and chemical compounds, and those oils will leak out a bit from the rubber sometimes. And we're just making sure that we get a nice good finger of fabric there, and we're just very strenuously giving that a nice good clean inside. I'm going to find a clean place and do it same thing on the other side. This is the inside of the wheel of the tire, remember? And then we're going to get our fingernail inside that cloth and just make sure we get all this area here is where the glue is going to run. And when we got that nice and clean, you can tell because it just feels extra sticky. So now we're ready to glue the tire onto the wheel. But first, we're going to have to prepare the wheel itself. So you can get your file that we used in the first step, and we're just going to very gently just scuff up the bead of the wheel. You can do this with the instructions actually recommend to use sandpaper, but I find that doing this with a file is just a bit easier because the file doesn't really lose its shape. And we're just going to do the inside bit as well. This is where the flat pit part of the tire will be sitting. I'm going to do the same thing on this piece here, on the outside of the wheel. And you can see how, in the reflection of the light, you see how you got some scuffed bits, and over here you've got some unscuffed bits. So you see now those areas are nicely scuffed. That the super glue or the cyanoacrylate will be able to get into those grooves and really hold the tire to the wheel rim. And this is just a hobby-sized file. You can get, obviously there's much larger files you can get. Let's see if that will actually fit there. There we go. So now we have the wheel rim nicely scuffed. And you can see that was before we did it, and this is after we did it. So there's plenty of scuffing there. So the next bit is to get the wheel onto the actual tire itself. It's just like if you've ever seen real tire fitters do them at the garage. Very similar sort of action, except obviously it's much easier. You don't need any tools to do this, but what you do want to do is make sure you see where the edges of the rubber are meeting right up with the hard plastic of the wheel. So see, like that, you don't want this You see where it starts to dip in there. You want to make sure that you pull that out, and there you go. Okay? And on the outside, same thing. And now you can see what the wheel and tire is going to look like, and you get a real sense of what the size of the car is going to be. It's going to be amazing. So now we're going to get our glue, and this is where it can get a little bit tricky if you're not used to working with instant adhesive. And again, there's loads of different brands. Let's see if I have enough in this one, in this little bottle. If you're not confident in using super glue, that's fine. Get a responsible adult or an older sibling or a friend to help you out. That's fine. And what we're going to do is just, with the ball of your thumb and your thumb itself, just going to normally I would do this flat on the table, but it's a little bit easier to show you on camera if you do it like this. We're just going to pull this away very gently. And the instructions recommend that you place the glue in the 8 points. So these, if you think of it, north, south, east, east and west, and then the points in between as well. So like north, northwest, northeast, etc. That's one way to do it. And if you have very thin glue, you can do it that way. Very simple. This is a little bit thicker glue. So you can see, just put a drop in that opening and just let it sort of work itself around. And every couple of centimeters, or about every inch or so around the circumference of the wheel rim, just going to put a bit of the glue. And how quickly it runs around will depend on the type of glue that you have. This is a fairly medium viscosity glue, so it doesn't run around very quickly. Now what we're going to do is get another piece of our cloth and just very quickly just rub it around, just so we get rid of the balls of glue around the edging. So now you can see, if you pull on it, you can see where the weak points are. Still drying in that bit probably. Okay. Now I've always found that doing the outside wheel rim gluing is much easier than doing the inside here, because here you have, if you're doing the outside, you have something to grip onto, but when you're doing the inside, you don't have as much to grip onto. And you might get a tiny bit of glue in your fingers. So just trying to avoid the glue. You see, again, I'm using my thumb, the whole area of the thumb, just to pull back evenly, because if you pull it back just in one area, you might end up with the tire separating, the bead actually separating from the tire, and you don't want that. So that's a little bit too much glue there. But we'll let it settle down. The inside of the wheel isn't as important to get nice and neat. But the important thing, the most important thing, is to make sure that the entire rim of the wheel is glued into place securely, so it doesn't ever come apart. But we'll give this a wipe just to make sure. So you can see the spots where the glue's coming out. So now we're just going to let that dry. I'm just going to set it aside and just let it look nice in the background there. And the next step is to assemble the servo saver. So we're just going to get our scissors. Open up the tape. And here we've got a screw, a lock nut, and this little gizmo here, little metal piece. And here's our main pieces of the servo saver. Screws in, very good. So we're just Alright, so the first thing is we're going to get the short arm. We've got two arms here. They're both quite different, as you can see. We're going to take this one first. And just like the instructions say, we're going to hold it like that and put that in there. And then we're going to take the lock nut and just tighten it on with our fingers for now. Okay, we're not going to tighten that all the way until the instructions tell us. So now we just make sure it looks like that, because that's what the instructions have us to make sure, and we're checking. And then, well, I've already unscrewed that, but we unscrew this. We hold it like so, and then we're putting this in there. So you see how there's a hexagon shape, and this piece is obviously hexagon shaped, and we're putting that in there. And then we're getting the other piece, which you can see has a matching shape, and we're just going to make sure, first of all, that we're orienting it the same way that we see in the picture. And there we go. And then we're putting the spring on, which fits up inside this bottom piece. It's quite tight, so you might need to get some help with this. So now we're going to press that on, and just carefully, so we're not cross-threading anything, we're just going to tighten this on in place. And by cross-threading, I mean that this isn't steel, this piece. This is aluminum. And if it's cross-threaded, that messes up the threads. Obviously, it's not a good thing. So, just making sure that it is lined up there. So once we have this fully installed, and you can use your pliers for this, if you do, and you don't want to scratch the metal finish, you can just wrap it with a cloth and squeeze gently, and then you can tighten it that way. Okay. Now what this does, and we'll see later in the as we build more of the kit, is that when something hits the wheel, or more likely the car hits something, and that forces the wheel in one direction, you can see that this is a spring-loaded action here that protects the steering servo from too much damage. So, but we'll get to that soon enough. So now we're going to set that aside, and the next step is to just pick up the left servo saver piece and just take that apart. And you can see that there's a hexagonal piece that fits inside this piece here, the top piece, and that's it, pretty much. So you can see that there's your left and there's your right, and these will turn to basically steer the front wheels. Okay, so now we're going to set those aside. And the final step is, of course, assembling the air filter. And for this, we're going to need our Phillips head cross wrench. And we're going to need the main air filter body and the top piece. And we're just going to align those. And we're going to get the hole lined up. We're going to get self-tapping plastic screw and put that through. And just barely get it started. And then we're just going to tighten it down. And there we go. That's that. Very easy. Final step is to attach the rubber neck to the end of the air filter. It's very easily done. Just cram it on there. Give it a little bit of a twist. Make sure that the long end of the neck is the part that faces down. The short end, as you can see here, is attached to the air filter. And that is step 3. So now we're just going to set all these pieces aside, and we're going to get to step 4, which is mostly assembling the side mirrors. And we've also got one of the shock dampers. So step 4 comes in a little bag like this. You can see it's clearly marked step 4. Just going to open it up. Well, the easiest way is to probably do this with the scissors. It's not sealed underneath though, so it's alright. So we've got one of the damper or shock absorber bodies. We've got a few other pieces for the shock absorber. There's your spring. Looks like some internal pieces. There's your shock shaft. And it looks like, not quite exactly sure what that is. It looks like the rest of the shock. And there's an aerial or an antenna. And we've got the side mirrors. So the steps that we're going to need for this are our cutters, tweezers to get the stickers off the sticker sheet. And again, like I showed you in step 2, you can just use the tip of your knife as well if you want. So just set those aside for now. We don't have to worry about them just yet. And we'll open up the side mirror bag. Let's make sure we get everything cleared away so we don't have too much going on here. Okay, so we've got the main side mirror body. Looks like these are already come slightly assembled already, because the instructions have you actually assemble these, but yeah, there we go. So you can see that these pieces simply just attach together, and you just press it in place. And then we get one of these pieces, And this is the piece that actually attaches to the body itself. You see there's little rivets there. And it looks like I'm going to get this little plastic pin and slide it up into the body here. And just press that into place. So that's pretty cool. And then we'll do the same again with this side. Making sure that this is the right mirror and this is the left mirror, and that little piece sticks out to the front. I'm going to put the pin in place very easily. And now we're going to get these chrome mirror pieces. Just find our knife. And we're going to cut right on the edge of where the chrome is, because as you can see, that little indentation in the chrome fits into this piece here. Okay? So we're just going to very carefully, again, if you're not confident about using a knife, you can use a pair of sharp scissors. Decent quality scissors. Offer scissors will be fine, and then just carefully separate the sticker material from the actual backing paper. And apologies if you can't see this very well, but I do have to cut this very carefully. So that's one done. Normally I would be doing this on a cutting mat, but I'm doing this purely for the purposes of the video. And again, I'm not cutting all the way through. This clear plastic piece could easily be cut, but you see there's no cut lines in that plastic piece at all because I'm not actually cutting through the paper. You can just see there. I'm just only cutting through the sticker material. Just very easily lift it off now, just like that. Now if you have a dull knife, that right there will be much harder to do. So now I'm just going to stick this in place. You see that's the right mirror. And we're just going to squeeze out the bubbles as much as we can. Here's the left mirror. I'm just going to get the left mirror. And you see they're marked left and right. It's very easy to tell apart. I didn't cut this one all the way enough. So now I've got the left mirror. I'm going to put the actual mirror sticker in place. It's a little bit crooked. There we go. It's a bit better. And try and press out from the middle to the edges. And there we go. Now we have a couple of mirrors. Pretty cool. And that is the end of step 4. In step 5, we'll be assembling the differential gears.